Hi, this is Alex Mitchell from the Go Tech Yourself channel, and today we're talking about product and growth and why those two teams, sometimes those two people, are just so much better together, especially at startups, especially at scaling startups. Product and growth got to be together. So that's me. I'm Alex Mitchell. I'm currently the Chief Product Officer of a company called ICX Media. You can find a lot about me on Twitter. I write a ton on Medium. I publish a newsletter every couple weeks called Go Tech Yourself as well, so check that one out. Also have a couple books on Amazon in the product space, and then also in kind of the self-help space, new economy space. And finally, please do subscribe to this channel. Please like this video. Please share it. Just launched this channel not too long ago, trying to get it off the ground, trying to help a lot of product and tech people out there. So please subscribe. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And let's jump right in. So, product and growth. So, I've worked for a few different scaling startups, and when these teams work well together, it's great. It's powerful. It's energizing. It's fun. It's creative. We'll talk about a few other adjectives to apply to these two teams. And when they don't work together, though, there's missed opportunities all over the place. They actually slow down the company. Then you're kind of uncaptured. You have uncaptured learnings, feedback from customer that's not shared. It's really bad, and just so many missed opportunities when these teams don't work closely together. So what we're going to talk about today is all the ways you can keep these teams tight together and things maybe to avoid that kind of cause these missed opportunities or uncaptured learning. So we're going to dive into this deep today, and hopefully you'll be kind of flush with ideas of ways to bring these teams together at your current company, and maybe also if you don't have a growth team yet, once you do have one, how to integrate it with the product team. So first, let's actually just start on growth a little bit. So I talk a lot about product in my blog, in my videos, not a ton about growth. So growth might be a new concept to some people. So what is this growth marketer? What is a growth team? So growth is kind of trying to ensure that the product you're building, features you have, provide value to both the customer and the company, kind of through the entire way of the life cycle. So we'll talk about a growth funnel that I like, and Craig, a growth person that I work with a lot, really likes later on here. But kind of from the time they see an ad about your company, the first kind of awareness they establish, to the time all the way at the other side where they're referring their friends. They really enjoy your product so much. Growth has visibility in that entire life cycle. Product does too, but growth is kind of responsible for kind of making sure this value is generated all the way through the cycle in both directions, to the company and to the customer. So a growth team goes out there and creates experiments. They talk to customers. They try and collect as much data as they can, quantitative data, qualitative data, and they share that within the company. So kind of underline that, sharing back to the product team and other stakeholders. Insanely important. We'll talk about that in a second. And then also they're often just doing so much testing, right? Experimentation, executing these tests out in the wild, coming up with hypotheses, focusing on certain metrics. So experiments and testing is a core part of the growth team. It's the way you get to growth, obviously. So let's jump on here now that we understand growth marketing, growth teams, growth in general. Let's just jump right in here and talk about how product and growth can support each other. So one of the first great ways that, in this case, it's kind of growth supporting product, is product, puts together roadmaps, right? They put together, sprint plans with epics. They put together quarterly roadmaps, usually against objectives or OKRs that the teams have. And sometimes they know what they want to build and what the impact of that is. Of course, if it's like an iteration on a feature, there's a ton of feedback already from customers or pretty clear metrics. They have a lot of, good data points sometimes. But in other cases, speaking as a product manager, there are times where things are maybe based more on intuition, based on the market opportunity, based on, oh, we heard, kind of these types of things from customers. So we think, this thing over here might be helpful to them or might, be a growth shoot for us. So what growth actually allows the product manager to do is to go and get quick real world data and feedback. So growth can go run some of those experiments, help the product team kind of prioritize those features intelligently, is what I call it, and almost pre-validate them. The growth won't be able to give you all the answers, but they'll be able to give you some data where you don't have data. They'll be able to give you some feedback from customers, maybe where you don't have feedback from customers. They'll be able to mock up a version of that feature that you're planning to build for a couple sprints next quarter. They'll be able to do it in a couple days and get a ton of feedback on it. So really, really help you kind of have data-driven roadmap additions. So growth can definitely help product there. And then flipping it back, so product can help growth with that testing, with that experimentation. So there's a lot of opportunities for product to build very, very small features. I'm talking, a couple days of engineered time that are just real enough for testing. So often growth can test without any, product or engineering time. We'll talk about that more later. But sometimes there is the need to build these just real enough features to get some of that experimental feedback. And then if they've built right, even only a couple days worth of time, if they're built with the right hooks or the right knobs or the right levers, those features built by product can often be the source of dozens of growth tests. So you can basically give this platform almost, a very lightweight feature with a few knobs to dial on, let's say, the price, or a knob to dial on, the duration of the plan or the exact feature numbers. With those hooks, growth can go and run dozens of tests over, maybe a couple weeks to really help product then understand, what's the appeal of this, what's the right way to build this feature. So product can help growth kind of unlock these testing opportunities. One of the other great ways the teams work together is naturally with product and growth. You have two of the most kind of idea generating parts of the organization. Product is always coming up with hypotheses and user stories. Growth, experimentation, and hypotheses. We just reviewed that. So ideas can come from anywhere, but really when you put product and growth together, you're going to get the most ideas. Maybe the only person you're kind of missing for this idea explosion is a founder. But you put those two teams together, you're going to get so many ideas, you're not going to know what to do with them. And so really good to bring them together, but make sure when you do, you focus on a piece of the funnel. So we'll talk about the funnel here in the 5 major stages, or a specific problem. So give them something to rally around, something to focus those ideas on. Because if you just generate ideas, you're going to end up with 100 ideas. They're going to be all over the place, not focused. So take advantage of bringing these teams together, but keep them focused. So here's that funnel we've been talking about. So these are called pirate metrics because it's RAARRR, kind of 5 major stages of the funnel. Basically product and growth need to share ownership of this funnel because they both are responsible for metrics in this funnel, but you need to clearly define the ownership. Is growth focusing on acquisition and activation, and product is more focusing on retention and revenue, maybe even a little bit on referral? That's typically the way most of the effort is put by the teams. But make sure you guys are on the same page. Make sure you understand who is working in each area, who owns the metrics in each area, what are those metrics in each area, and really make it visible to everyone in the organization. So just communicate. The simplest thing you can honestly do is make sure you're meeting, if you're a product manager, meeting with that growth marketer once a week. Check in on what tests are running, explain what's on your product roadmap for that sprint, what's coming up. Keep talking, look at the metrics, look at these stages of the funnel, and make sure you know who owns which parts at which time, because it will change. Growth runs so many experiments and they're collecting so much feedback all the time. I call it just a fire hose of feedback. You have to make sure, if you want your growth and product teams to work well together, that feedback comes very, very quickly back to the product team. It's honestly one of the most valuable things growth is doing is they're kind of manufacturing this feedback fire hose, right? Whether it's qualitative or quantitative, they're generating so much feedback, so much data that is so insightful and so helpful to the organization, but very specifically to the product team as well. So that information needs to get back to the product team. So there's a few ways that could happen. One is, just get the growth marketer and the product manager together once a week, like we talked about before. Simple. Another thing you can do is you can have a growth meeting once a week where tests are reviewed, hypotheses are generated, and new tests are planned. So kind of a sprint planning / sprint review for the growth team. This might be an hour meeting, might be an hour and a half if you guys have enough tests to run and recap, but invite product to that, invite other teams to that, let them absorb that feedback fire hose and take it back to their teams. So a few different ways to kind of support each other here, but just make sure that feedback is shared quickly so that the product team can act on it. Another way to support is to kind of work through what I and Craig call the step functions of growth. So growth usually in kind of the first couple stages, so these 0 to 1 and 1 to 10 stages, growth can actually be pretty self-sufficient. They can definitely get ideas from other people, but they shouldn't really need product or engineering to build those tests. They're doing things manually via email. They're standing up little landing pages, via landing page builders. They're trying a lot of things that really don't require any technical effort. Really, once you get to that 10 to 100 stage and you're starting to get team buy-in and the idea becomes a feature, that's where usually product and engineering become involved. That's when you put maybe a few hooks into the product, you build that lightweight feature for growth to further optimize and test against. But the main thing here is, again, communication. Growth and product need to be talking. They need to understand what ideas, what features, are in each of these stages and what's coming up next. They don't want to be surprised. They don't want to all of a sudden realize they have to build something in that 10 to 100 stage that they weren't planning on the product team. Just make sure your teams are talking here and understand how things are going through kind of these growth step functions. So those are all the ways they can work together, but here are some anti-patterns I've seen before with product and growth. So, we talked about the importance of sharing feedback. So anti-pattern is just failing or not sharing timely feedback. And really the problem here is there are just so many missed opportunities then. Product will just make bad or worse decisions about the roadmap. They won't know what feedback got shared from a customer that they didn't actually want this thing, or they're pricing something wrong with the marketing team, or they're positioning it wrong and not focusing on the features that actually matter. And so in the end, what this means is really just poor product decisions will be the result and slower growth will be the result. And so it's just so important to get that feedback pipeline shared. Another anti-pattern is just failing to actually test the ideas that product has. So growth teams are such a valuable resource for product managers that product managers should use them a lot. You want to make sure that those features, number one or zero, it's actually worth building, that it's a 1, not a 0. But growth can actually help a product manager shape the direction of that feature. So not only are you going to build it or not build it, but what way should you build it? What should you lean into more or lean away from a little bit? Or where should you build those testing hooks because we aren't quite sure what customers need? So, in large, basically, growth can help product not waste developer time, not waste time in general, by pre-validating some of those ideas and really just helping, steer that product ship, that engineering ship a little bit smarter than they otherwise would have steered it. Another anti-pattern is growth teams that do kind of overcomplicated or overly complicated or slow tests. So the name of the game here, right, is rapidly generating feedback, rapidly validating, pre-validating, partially validating ideas. And when you have slow tests or complex tests, it really just prevents you from testing other things. It doesn't mean those tests aren't good or aren't interesting. It just prevents you from testing more things. And complex tests, it just means it's going to be more difficult to interpret the results. It isn't going to give you that clear signal that you'd like. So just keep in mind that time is everything here. And if you hear about tests that are way complicated or are going to last weeks and weeks and weeks, see if there's a way to maybe get 80% of the value of that test in a couple days instead of 100% over a couple weeks. Think in that way because, again, time is everything here. Another anti-pattern is playing the blame game. Tests, spoiler alert, tests are going to fail. They're going to fail way more often than they succeed. Even with really, really good growth teams, really, really smart people, you don't know what you don't know. You have to test. This is why we test, to see what fails, to see what resonates with customers. You're playing a team sport. These teams need to support each other, need to celebrate failure. Honestly, if you get a really strong failed test, that's a great signal in itself. That prevented you from going and doing something, spending more resources, and building something that honestly would have fallen flat on its face. That is actually something to be celebrated. So tests are going to fail all the time. Celebrate those failures. It'll help you understand how to succeed more. Don't play the blame game. Not worth it. Another anti-pattern, if you think back to that kind of funnel that we looked at before, the first stage was acquisition and awareness, and activation. If you remember those kind of first ones, those are typically the places growth teams play or marketing teams play as well. And often they kind of neglect what I call these down funnel stages. So more the like retention, the revenue, referral, sometimes thought like more as the product spaces, not as much growth and marketing. Just don't neglect those stages. Maybe you'll still spend most of your time in the first couple stages on your growth team, but you may actually be able to find easier wins with retention or with revenue or with referral. And then make sure just to align the focus on those different funnel stages with your business. Does your business have a retention problem? Would retention go further in generating more, monthly recurring revenue for your business? Maybe. What stage is the startup? Are you guys having to drive a lot of new customer growth, or really are you trying to, pivot to more repeatable revenue, profitability, maybe as a near-term goal? You're going to focus on different stages. So just make sure you're focusing on the right stages of the funnel, that you have the right goal, and everyone is communicating and understands those goals, so that the growth and product team can work best together. So I'd like to also introduce a great course on growth. Even if you're a product manager and you want to learn more about growth. So Craig Zingerline, a person I've worked with at Upside Travel before and on a lot of side projects, has put together a pretty awesome growth course with a lot of input from a bunch of scaling startups, a lot of his own experience, a lot of experience of other growth marketers he's worked with. Craig's founded a bunch of companies and has been in growth and product roles at a lot of those companies and others. And really, he's distilled down all of that experience into this really awesome growth course that honestly doesn't just benefit marketers, doesn't just benefit growth people, but can benefit product managers as well. So check out this course. You can find it either in the notes directly under this video. You can find it in the slides here if you're downloading those through the link under the video. But please check it out. You'll really enjoy it. He also has some free resources there that you can just check out on your own time and really improve your understanding of growth. So thanks for listening. Again, I'm Alex. You can find me in all of these places. And please, please, please subscribe. Please share this with your growth friends, your marketing friends, your product friends, anyone you think could benefit from understanding how growth and product can work better together. Thanks.